Hey, this is Nick Millivoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarist podcast, where we're talking about 100 guitars that we think that you should know.
That's right.
Jason, who are we talking about today?
We are talking about one of the all-time tastiest guitar players, Mike Campbell.
But before we get to Mike, we want to remind you that you can get at us by sending us an email to 100 Guitarists. That's 100 Guitarists at premierguitar.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail or shoot us a text at 319-423-9734. And if you don't like talking to people on the phone, fear not, nobody will answer. Just
That's
a
right.
voicemail. So give us your questions, your comments, your suggestions, your concerns, anything you want to share about the 100 guitarists that you think everybody who is interested in the guitar should know about. Every week, we talk about a different guitar player. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you know we're here, but we're also an audio podcast, and you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's
so
right.
Be sure to find us there too and give us a subscribe. Maybe even write a review if you like the podcast. Or if you don't like the,
Thumbs
just
up.
write a review.
5 stars. It's
Yeah.
free. Just hit it.
Yeah. Every day I open up our podcast and I hit 5 stars.
5 stars.
Today's episode is brought to you by Fender, and we want to tell you about the Fender Player II series, which includes all new vital versions of Fender's most iconic models with contemporary upgrades for players of today. That includes comfortable modern C necks with smooth rolled edges, the return of rosewood fingerboards, and new vintage colors that have been unearthed from the Fender vaults. You can shop Fender.com and receive free shipping on orders $50 and up.
Yes, and so the Player II series has the Stratocaster, the Telecaster, the Jaguar, and the P-Bass, among others. But for you, Nick, what are like the 3 essential features of a Fender guitar that you need?
Oh boy. The 3 essentials of a Fender guitar, I can just think about the ones that I own or have owned. For me, I'm picking up a Fender guitar. I'm thinking about the whammy bar, and that's specific to whatever guitar it's on. If it's on a Strat, I want the Strat vibrato. If it's on a Jaguar, which really is my preference probably of these, I'm going for the Jaguar vibrato. Single coil pickups.
Jazz bass, get a little wiggle stick on there.
Oh, I'll take that.
No.
So single coil Fender pickups, that's the thing. That's what makes them Fendery to me. And I want to be able to take that neck off, and I want to be able to pack it up real nice if I'm traveling.
Frizzell
How
style.
about
Rosewood fretboard. Locking tuners, a bit controversial, and smooth fret edges, I would say. With let me go back to not locking tuners, the vintage style tuners.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yep. I have locking tuners on one of my Strats. It's all good. But essential things, rosewood fretboard, vintage style tuners, put the string in, wrap it around, and a C-shaped neck. Those are my 3 that I need on any Fender guitar.
Yeah, I can get with that.
Dig it. So thank you, Fender, for sponsoring today's episode. And how convenient that we have Fender on board as a sponsor, and we're talking about one of the... when I think of Mike Campbell, I think of that broadcaster.
Yeah, okay.
That he had. Some might call it a telly. The heads know it's a broadcaster, but telly would be acceptable in mixed company, let's say, right? We're not going to rake somebody over the coals for that. So when you think of Mike Campbell, other than the incredible hair that he's had for decades, underrated hair in rock and roll, what is there a track you're thinking? Is there a riff you're thinking? What is it?
So it's obviously the easiest association. You think about Mike Campbell, you think about Tom Petty.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot more. We're going to unpack. There's a lot more to Mike Campbell than his association with Tom Petty. Now, granted, that isn't to say, like, the Tom Petty, his work with Tom is the biggest part of of his musical life, and that's what we're mostly going to talk about. But there's so much to Mike Campbell that we got to dig into. But to answer your question, when I think of him, I'm not really super psyched about this answer because I feel like it's really generic. I want to have a deeper thing, but this is just like deep rooted stuff. I'm thinking about American Girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing you want. If a student had come to me and said, I hear that Mike Campbell, who plays with Tom Petty, is really great. What's something I can learn about Mike Campbell? I'm probably just going to show them the solo to American Girl. How about you?
Yes, I would say that, and very melodic slide guitar playing is what I think about.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays slide in such a different way than Derek Trucks or Dwayne, or out of that kind of real bluesy open E sound. His slide guitar phrases are so melodic and so simple, and I believe a lot of them are done, if not all of them are done, standard tuning, or variations thereof. That it's a good entry point into getting into slide guitar, because the parts are easy to figure out and they're relatively simple, but they fit so well with Tom's songs.
What song are you thinking of?
So when I think of slide guitar with Mike Campbell, the song that comes to mind is I Won't Back Down. But that has the big slide hook on it. But I know even on throughout Tom Petty's catalog with Mike, there are little bits of slide that kind of are in the background, overdubs here and there.
Yeah.
But he's one of my favorite slide guitar players of all time.
Yeah, I can get with that. So I think that's a good way to talk about something about Mike Campbell that's so important. Is it's so common and so cliche to talk about a player who plays for the song, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about this all of the time, right? We talk about players who support the song, and that's a virtuous path. To me, Mike Campbell is truly among the absolute best to ever do it.
Yes.
Let's take that American Girl solo, for example, right? That's a sporty solo, right? That has some cool technical parts, but there's nothing that leaps out from the scope of that tune. It's right in the right spot. But then so many other songs, when you just think of the song, I don't know, take any Tom Petty song, you think about the song and the parts that Mike is playing are just so intrinsic to what you think about when you think about the song. And I think for me, it's every interview I've ever seen, and we can talk more about this because you've actually talked with Mike. I never have, but I've watched a lot of interviews, and it's his vibe in interviews. I love his vibe. He's so warm. He's totally open. He is an open book, and that's so aligned with his musical persona. He is absolutely playing for the song, and he is playing for the song in the right style. It's he has this there's multiple facets to what he does. I think about George Harrison a lot when I think about Mike Campbell, and strummy 12-string kind of sounds and stuff we just associate with Tom Petty, big open chords. Rickenbacker,
yep.
Of course. But Roger McGuinn is in that too, those sorts of sounds. But there's also, when he plays lead, there's this Chuck Berry thing. I'm not necessarily thinking about Chuck Berry when I hear Mike Campbell. I'm thinking about rock and roll. He is living within the world of rock and roll or something with the stuff that he plays. And it's he so gets that language. And I think that's why so many different giant big name artists have tapped Mike Campbell to be on their albums. Not to come, it's not Eddie Van Halen playing Beat It. It's not to come be a featured thing. It's you and I were talking before this episode, and we're looking at his discography and oh, he's on that. Oh, he's on that. Because all he's doing is
be careful. Don't get tricked. There's another Mike Campbell. No relation.
Mike Dino Campbell.
Mike Dino Campbell, who was also a fairly well-recorded, often recorded.
He played on some big
players.
stuff, but you can tell which Mike Campbell did which. Don't trust Wikipedia for sure. But this is why he's on so many hit records. But
Yeah.
once you know it's him, you can hear that it's him. Right? It's not he's not an anonymous player. He's just a vibe player.
Yeah. And one thing, so when we had him on Shred with Shifty, we were
Mm-hmm.
doing The Waiting, which is a very iconic, like memorable melodic solo. And it kind of dawned on me a bit because I've heard all the solos. I can hear a lot of them in my head from the Petty stuff, but I never really, other than maybe American Girl, The Waiting, and maybe like something like Running Down a Dream, have I really sat and tried to play them, you know? And with the more melodic stuff, the less Running Down a Dream, is that his approach to creating these parts is so ingrained with triads, like simple little triads, whether he uses them melodically or as the basis for his rhythm parts. Like, if I was teaching, and I've taught those solos to students before, where it's like it's such a study in triadic improvisation, and not coming from some kind of nerdy jazz school. Like, when you have that G chord, here's 3 different places where you can really play, you know, really meaningful melodic G major bass stuff. And his vocabulary that he's developed over 50 years of working with, 50 years he worked with Tom Petty, is just a treasure trove of all that stuff. You could literally pick almost any, you know, Mike Campbell solo and be able to get 2 or 3 really interesting melodic phrases out of it that when you throw into maybe your songs, people are like, oh, dang, there he is.
Yeah. So that Shred with Shifty episode is really interesting to me. There's 2 things I want to touch on. One is, and if anybody listening, if you haven't heard the episode of Shred with Shifty with Mike Campbell, like absolutely go there after this. I think that that's like a great entry point for like everything we're talking about. As far as Mike's vibe and the way he approaches his guitar playing. And there's a spot where he plays the intro or the arpeggiated figure, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, Tom plays this. This is what I would play. And I had I had always heard that as this one piece.
Yeah, right.
Right? I never heard it as 2 separate guitar parts. I hear it as one thing. And hearing him separate the 2 things, like, wow, man, it made me appreciate how hooked up the 2 of them were, and like how important his parts are to the songs, and how much he doesn't necessarily stand out. He stands in, he gels with Tom. And like, man, I think that is just such a big thing to aspire to for any guitar player.
Yeah, that could have been the biggest revelation to come out of learning that solo. Is that oh, those are 2 parts right there instead of 1, which you could play it on 1, you know. And I think Chris is even like, I've always just played it on 1, you know. But knowing, and for me, that interplay between 2 guitar players, when it comes to the types of harmonies that Tom and Mike would write in their songs, is all about inversions. If you're playing a G down there, I'm playing a G up here, and vice versa. Like, you never want to be if you're playing with another guitar player over relatively simple harmonies, you never want to be in the same place of the neck as
they're not both cowboy chording at the same time.
No. One of them can maybe throw a capo on, you know, come up with some 12-string arpeggios that way or whatever. But that could be the biggest lesson from a guitaristic standpoint to take out of the entire Tom Petty, Mike Campbell play where they ain't. You know, play your part where they ain't.
So there's another thing they talk about in Shred with Shifty, and not to just like focus on that.
We're here
when
for
you
it.
could
It's
just
fine.
Go listen to it.
Yeah.
But Chris asks Mike about his approach to vibrato, and Mike says his advice is to think like a voice, and that's what'll tell you where to put vibrato, and that's how he doesn't overdo it, and that's how he always knows how to do it, and that is so important. And like the way he sums it up, I mean, it's not anything. It's going back to what we were saying before. It's not anything that like we haven't talked about before, haven't heard before, but like it's just so essential. It's just an essential lesson that everybody not only needs to learn, but needs to think about. I need to think about that all the time. Like, think like a voice. That's how you play the guitar. that's what melodies are, right? Like, I think that's deep.
And I think that especially stands out for Mike on his slide playing because one thing, I can't remember who I heard. I heard this from somebody else other than Mike, whereas sometimes slide players, when they're starting to learn how to, and they're getting their intonation together, they use too much vibrato. So his thing was like, let me hit the note in tune, let me hit the note in pitch and hold it for a second and then add the vibrato.
Yeah.
And that to me is a more vocal-like use of vibrato than hitting a note and just, going straight into a wide vibrato. So, yeah, I've definitely heard that. And so if you were to think of like what are maybe the 2 or 3 quintessential Tom Petty, Mike Campbell songs, as a complete entity, what would be on your list?
All right, I didn't make a list of this.
No, I threw this on you. Hey,
this is just off the top of my head.
Yes, one of them, both of our 3 are definitely going to be the same.
Okay, 5 you said?
3. There's 3.
3. Ah, 3 is tough.
No.
Refugee. That's my number 1 Tom Petty song. Running Down a Dream. And
the one I was thinking of, you haven't even named yet. That's incredible.
I want to say Breakdown, but it's like there's a part of me that wants to spread it out amongst the catalog a little bit deeper. And I had said American Girl is like my go-to just because of the solo, but yeah, I don't know, one of those. What do you got?
American Girl, hands down. Might be the quintessential Mike and Tom song ever written, right? You Wreck Me. It was a late era one.
Yes.
Such a cool way that the harmony in that song is really something to be studied, because I love how they can make non-diatonic songs feel diatonic. They have these subtle changes in harmony where you feel like they do it a tiny bit on American Girl. You Wreck Me, I think, is a great example of that. So those 2 for sure. And then I'm gonna go with Don't Come Around Here No More.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Although that's not a Tom Petty written song. Or it was written, it was not Mike Campbell did not write that with Tom Petty.
It's Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart, yes. I think it was, their stuff on there is pretty, I think that's a pretty quintessential song. If I had to pick one more, I'd pick Walls from She's the One.
I'm so glad you said that.
Walls
that is
from
one
She's
of
the
my
One.
favorite Tom Petty songs.
And I love the idea of a band doing a whole soundtrack.
Yes.
That was a very
very
cool,
90s thing.
Have you ever seen the documentary? The like 6-hour Tom Petty documentary, Running Down a Dream?
I've seen parts of it, but it's been a long time. I didn't watch it to prepare for this.
No. I mean, no, but it's well worth your time. I mean, when you think of really long documentaries, like you think of the Bulls, what was that, Last Dance?
Yeah.
And then there's the OJ one, which is like 12 hours long or whatever it is.
Or the new Pete Rose. That's only 4 parts.
I haven't watched that yet either. I saw that I saw it come up the other night, and I was like, oh, I'd love to see that.
It's a good one.
But that Running Down a Dream it's a very, very complete view of that. And the section on She's the One. And even like the early to mid 90s era of the band was some of the most, other than the late 70s era, I think was probably their best era.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I mean, you get Wildflowers in there, you get She's the One, you get Into the Great Wide Open, like just those 3 albums alone Learning to Fly. I mean, he has so many good ones.
So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about Mike's work really beyond just Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers records, which doesn't mean without Tom Petty. I just mean not under Tom's name. He's done so much work beyond that. And Tom and Mike have done work beyond. I mean, the Heartbreakers together have been a unit on other people's records. For one, Mike was really involved in like a large part of Stevie Nicks' discography.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe my third pick for my three songs that I think about is Stop Dragging My Heart Around. That's just such a great song.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so, you hear the two of them in it so much. They also did the Johnny Cash stuff together, the Johnny Cash American recordings. Couple of those records, they're Heartbreakers records fronted by Johnny Cash, and hearing the guitar parts with them, I don't know who's playing what necessarily at all times.
Yeah.
But there is some really fantastic two guitar stuff that I do believe is Mike Campbell and Tom Petty playing guitars together. I want to say that just off the top of my head, that version of Solitary Man, hearing the two of them play, that's that interwoven thing that if you're listening, say you were listening to mono or something, not on headphones, not on studio monitors where you hear separation, you might think that that's a big 12-string guitar. But if you listen with separation, you can hear there's two pan guitars. Johnny's voice is in the middle. There's two acoustic guitars, and they're just so sympathetic to each other.
And I bet their version of I Won't Back Down.
It's great.
Yeah. That was in there as well. That definitely has some good two guitar work on it.
There's a lot of other fantastic stuff that he's on. That Roy Orbison record, Mystery Girl from the late 80s. Mike is on there. Talk about vibrato. Listening to Roy, I was listening to this the other day, thinking about what Mike Campbell said about listening to the singer for vibrato, and then I'm listening to Roy Orbison's vocal vibrato. I'm like, that is a different thing. That's like an American treasure right there.
Yeah.
Every note, whoa, 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 whoa.
Is Mike Campbell the most successful session guitar player of the 80s who wasn't really a session guitar player?
I think he was the most successful rock star session guitar player.
Right?
Like that's where you're
I don't
we're
even
not
think
talking
there's a
about like
second.
Michael Landau or something.
No, or Lukather, or those guys who literally just came in and
Lukather, yeah, I guess he was a rock star, but
I mean,
different thing.
Mike Campbell's a different. Like, I don't even know who would be in second place.
Yeah,
who did this many, and especially in the 80s. I would say from 84 to 96 or something. I don't think anybody could compare with the success of Mike in terms of co-writing songs, playing on other people's records, and having his thing kind of envelop into this whole like second act.
Yeah.
Because the Heartbreakers had kind of the late 70s, very early 80s was kind of a commercial peak, and then it kind of dipped a little bit, and then in the late 80s to mid 90s kind of had this big resurgence, behind Tom's solo records.
So there's a funny thing about the dip that dip that you mentioned. So yeah, the co-writing thing is such a big thing for Mike Campbell. And I feel like every interview with Mike Campbell bears this out, that Mike just must be a cool dude to hang out with. Like, you meet Mike Campbell and he's probably like the kind of guy you just say, I want to write a song with this guy. Right? Why else would he have written so many awesome songs? But
yeah,
he wrote two giant Don Henley songs. I'm not necessarily a Don Henley fan, but I love Heart of the Matter, great song that they co-wrote, and Boys of Summer. I think that is, Boys of Summer is the best Don Henley song. And there's a really great video where Mike is talking about writing Boys of Summer and the recording process. And he talks about how he's messing around. He had a Linn drum. He's messing around with his Linn drum, stays up all night. He's programming the Linn drum, makes the beat. And listen to I'm really into drum programming listen to the drum program on that song. It is so rad. So, you know, it ends up being it's not going to fit with Tom Petty. It doesn't make sense. But Jimmy Iovine, I think, says like you should bring this. Don's looking for some songs. I think this would fit Don's record. And so Don hears it. He loves it. He wants to record the demo. They record it. They do, you know, they record exactly how he had it on the demo. They import the drum track, or not import, they record the drum tracks. And, you know, all the guitar stuff that's on there, they nail it. Then Don says he wants to change the key. And Mike in the video explains, like, with Tom Petty, we didn't change keys to fit Tom's voice. We, like, wrote it in a key together, and that was the voice. But in this case, you know, Don's a vocalist. He's trying to do a vocal thing in a different, you know, kind of manner than Tom. He wants everything in new key. So by the end, they have to re-record all this stuff, all his layers. Like it's not like now we could just change the key in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever. And by the end, the back of the analog tape is peeling off, and he describes actually gluing the tape back on in order to get the master. And it's like, that was the last time that tape could even handle being played, was when they bounced the mix down to master it. So anyway, there's a funny thing, because at the end he says, yeah, that song was really great for my family and I, and goes on to explain that his house was in foreclosure at that time. And he just he was broke. And this is the 80s. I mean, yeah. Tom Petty was huge for years already, and now his house is getting foreclosed, and then he writes this giant hit with Don Henley. Yeah. I think that's such an amazing story.
Yeah, I was not the biggest Don Henley fan. I thought I was after I heard these two songs. And then I'm like, nope, I just like those two songs.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
I'm good. Thanks, Don. I'll take these two in Eagles Greatest Hits Volume 2, and we'll go our separate ways.
Honestly, I'm good with these two. Sorry, Don. You did a rig rundown with Mike.
I did it with Chinner, his tech.
Right.
But yes, that was an early one, way back when. I bet you it was probably 10 years ago at this point. I remember Chinner he's like quintessential guitar tech character, just a total character, super fun to talk to, and about gear. And, you know, he'd say like, yeah, Mike's wife bought this off eBay, or, you know, surprised him with this or that. And he had a lot of the Duesenbergs and Rickenbackers out there on the road. If I remember right, a lot of his amps were small wattage amps that he would just crank up loud and let the PA do the work of getting it out to the crowd, you know. I wasn't on stage for their set, but I remember thinking, I go, you know, is it that loud here on stage? He goes, no, not really. You know, he had, I don't know, 3 to 5 at least little like Princeton size amps there, kind of as a wall. But then he's like, I think I can probably get away with this, telling this story now. He's like, do you want to know the secret to Mike's tone? And I think Keys was holding the camera. He's like, yeah, but you got to turn the camera off.
Ooh.
And so Keys does the thing where he just points the camera down, and I'm just still holding the mic, right? So we're not getting this on film. And he's like, and he pulls out this pedal drawer.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, whenever Mike steps out to solo, Chinner reaches over and had a Custom Audio Electronics 1-knob booster, just a simple like line driver or something.
Mm-hmm. He
goes, whenever Mike's out there, I go over here and I just turn it up just a little bit for his solo to give him a little extra juice, and then I turn it back down. And Keys and I think we're waiting for but the secret is blah, 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 blah. And it never came. That was it.
That was the secret.
And we're like, we look at Keys, we're just kind of, oh, that's so great, man. And we just kept going, you know, kept going along our business. But yeah, we got
simple secrets.
I think he was just kind of messing with us, So, but yeah, I would definitely check out the rig rundown. I think we might have tried to do another one when he was with Fleetwood Mac, and that never really came to fruition.
Right, that was a short period where he was the guitar player for Fleetwood Mac.
Right, but now that he's rolling around with Dirty Knobs, I think we're due for another one, Mike. So as you sit down on Sunday morning and your typical watching of the 100 Guitarist podcast, hit us up. We'd love to do another rig rundown.
I got to say, Dirty Knobs is like an encyclopedia of great guitar sounds.
Yeah.
Those records, like, it's all there, man.
Yeah. It's those guys. I mean, they know what a guitar is supposed to sound like.
Yeah. And how to get it.
And how to get it. That's right.
So I got a question for you. While we were preparing for this, looking through Mike Campbell's discography, really vibing on like what's so awesome about Mike Campbell. Did you come across any surprises?
Yeah. Actually, one that two, I thought. One was the surf rock album he did that
the
we
Blue
both
Stingrays.
mutually discovered. And apparently we were the last ones to discover this. As we did an informal poll of some people we knew who were big fans, we were both met with, yeah, you idiots. Of course, this was great. And the Matthew Sweet record he played on Inside. So yeah, those are the two ones that I am, thankfully, I now have queued up to listen to.
Yeah, the Blue Stingrays. So that is a record that he'd made of surf guitar music, original surf guitar music, with the exception of the Goldfinger theme. Man, what a great album.
Yeah,
it's super cool. Obviously, Mike gets the history of surf guitar and like really nails it. I think you could listen to it and not know that it's Mike Campbell and think, hey, this sounds familiar. I think so. To me, it sounds like Mike Campbell's guitar playing.
It's like a bit more
it's so in the genre.
It's like a bit more rocking than your typical surf guitar record. The guitars are a little dirtier. It's not the super clean, massive piles of reverb, twangy surf guitar. Like,
Which like the twang is there, but yeah,
it's there, but it's not the uber clean Venture style surf guitar with way too much spring reverb type thing, which I like.
Or not too much.
Or not, yeah.
And as I say, sitting in front of my green on green Jazz Master.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but also played the slide guitar on Wallflower 6th Avenue Heartache.
Yeah, right. That's one I didn't realize.
I've heard that song a million times, and it never dawned on me. I always thought it was Michael Ward playing slide guitar.
I would assume because it's so essential to that song, right?
Yeah, I would have. I mean, and now I can't unhear it now. Now I totally hear it as Mike Campbell on that.
Also, I mean, this one makes a lot of sense. This would be who they would go to. But Brian Setzer's departure from Rockabilly album from the 80s, his Heartland Rock album, of course it has Mike Campbell on it. Who else are you going to go to at that level? That's kind of a surprising one. For me, I mean, just thinking about, for my own personal interests here, I'm in a room with a surf guitar and a reverb unit behind me and a bunch of drum machines off camera over here. We've talked about all these things. I mean, Mike Campbell, I'm realizing as we're talking about this, he is like the quintessential dude,
Totally. So if you had a Mike Campbell tribute band, which I think would be a blast, what would the name of the band be?
I'm not good at these things.
I'm not good at it either. But if anybody out there can think of a good tribute name or a good name of a band for a Mike Campbell tribute band, drop it in the comments.
This is a cool idea for a band, right? That is not a tribute band, not a tribute band to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Nope.
A tribute band to Mike Campbell that encompasses his work
everything
with the Heartbreakers,
he's either played on
Don
or wrote.
Henley, Stevie Nicks, Dirty Knobs, like all the stuff. No, I love this. There should be more tribute bands that follow this method.
I mean, I am so down. So down for this. I mean, we're playing a Blue Stingrays track. We're going to slip in a sneaky Fleetwood Mac song in there.
Yep.
Because he played on that live. We're obviously the Petty stuff. Obviously Stevie Nicks. We're playing Boys of Summer. We're playing a couple covers from the Johnny Cash. Like, this sounds like something we need to do.
Cool Hair, the Mike Campbell tribute act.
Cool Hair. I mean, not my first choice, but
No, it's not the best one.
not the best one. But hey, we got to start somewhere. So
Yeah.
if you're seeing this in the comments, drop us down your Mike Campbell tribute band name. And
Hey, speaking of comments, we got a little note here about Mike Campbell that I want to read.
yes.
All right, so Phil Jacoby writes in his thoughts on Mike Campbell. Phil says, it's hard to think of what to say about Mike Campbell that has not already been said, but then I think it cannot really be overstated what a stylistic impact he has had on popular music. When you think of lead players and how they're often described, Mike is in many ways the antithesis of those players. Where they embellish, he stays steady and clean. Where they run through notes, he scales back. But what he does every single time is perfectly serve the song. His devotion to melody without frills became an essential part of the sonic signature for some of the best and most enduring pop songs of all time, and his characteristic precision and simplicity has made him, somewhat surprisingly, one of the most inimitable guitarists ever. I think regardless of how good a player you are, one of the most difficult tasks you could set yourself would be to try to write and play like Mike Campbell.
There you go.
Couldn't
Well
say it better
said,
myself,
Phil.
Phil.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would say, just to comment on that, as far as one of the most difficult tasks being to try and play like Mike Campbell, how many guitar players' first riffs, within their first 10 riffs that they learn are things that Mike Campbell played, whether it's the Tom Petty part or not. That's not what I'm talking about. Just like are those songs. I mean, I know I've taught Free
Breakdown?
Fallin' so many times, Breakdown so many times.
Running Down a Dream.
Oh yeah, like these are just early guitar, like this is early guitar fundamental stuff.
Yeah. Mary Jane's Last Dance.
Oh yeah.
Come
Taught that
on,
a
like
lot.
that. I can't tell you how many times it's 1:30 in the morning or at the end of the set, and I break into that A minor chord, and the place just starts levitating. I mean, and it's like that's less of a riff, and just how you hit that chord gives that song away.
You
I
hit
mean,
an A minor, just like
you
that.
hammer
everyone knows
on,
what song it is.
right down,
Yeah.
kills every time. And I was just at teaching at Corey Wong's summer camp, and before the camp they send out a list of songs to like kind of jumpstart the after hours jams, and one of them was Mary Jane. And so at midnight you're kind of walking through the hotel, and you'll hear you'll hear Steely Dan's Josie in this room. You might hear a Wolfpack song coming out of that room, and then you hear Mary Jane coming out of this other room.
It's awesome.
So it crosses over quite a bit.
All right. Well, I think we did it.
We did it. Yes. So if you want to hit us up and be a quasi guest on the show, you can email us at 100guitarists@premierguitar.com, or you can call us at 319-423-9734.
Thanks again to Fender. Make sure you check out the Player II series.
Yep.
And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.